sadly, this thing of beauty right here is still a concept, and Digital Extremes will not care unless we let them know that this thing exists. So, my job right now is to show them that there are fans out there that created masterpieces which I think the Warframe community would want to have in-game, starting with this concept frame, a dark-themed frame which is all about control and fear. This puppeteer frame is called Moirai. In Greek mythology, Moirai means destinies or apportioners. They are the goddesses who decide the fate of every mortal from birth to death. Clotho as the spinner, Lachesis as the illator, and Atropos as the unturnable. These three sisters hold the thread of life, and they control the fate of every human being on this planet. Now I have seen lore similar to this but not on Warframe. If you can recall Brewes, Weaves and Wispes from The Witcher 3, then you might remember that they have the same lore as these three Moirai. They are weavers of fate also, as they control folks around Velen. The crones consider townfolks as servants, who are forced to do their bidding as the ultimate price for their safety and well-being. Now we could easily adapt this lore into the game, only this time, instead of sisters, it will be dark brothers who will decide the fate of every faction in the game. There will be Necros, the younger brother who commands the undead army to do their bidding, Harrow which imposes ultimate torture to those lost souls, and Moirai, the eldest among the brothers that use his strings to lead every single person to his or her demise. With these three's powers and devious goal, the universe isn't safe. Even the Tenno is not safe from their ever-consuming darkness. As a puppeteer frame, Moirai has a very controlling and interesting kit. His first ability is called Mannequin. This ability will allow Moirai to jump on an enemy and control them at his will. While Moirai is in control, he is perceived as invisible and immune to any damage type for the duration of the ability, or until the target dies. The target will have an increase in damage, and the damage will also be affected by your weapon mods. Lastly, you can decide to target another enemy while Mannequin is still active. Moirai will jump into the new target, while the previous victim will be bound into the ground. His second ability is called Abhorrent Parade. This ability will allow you to chain multiple enemies to Moirai's thread. Chained enemies will be unable to attack, and they will get ragdoll after Moirai. Enemies that are chained will receive damage, and those chained enemies that are still alive will receive all the damage while you shooting those corpses that are in the chain. Abhorrent Parade will synergy with your first ability, as once you cast this ability while Mannequin is active, that controlled enemy will be added to the chain. However, the invisibility and immune to damage feature of Mannequin will be diminished once you use it with his second ability. Now his fourth ability is Absolute Madness and Perfection. It's called Centipede, and it will allow you to create monster arthropod out of all those corpses that you have chained using your Abhorrent Parade. The Centipede will follow Moirai around, attack all enemies that it sees. It will also have a really strong aggro, and it emits a fear aura that will stun enemies near on it for a couple of seconds. Lastly, its health would be based on the number of corpses you chained on your Abhorrent Parade ability. The corpses, the bigger and the tankier your Centipede will be. His passive ability will allow you to impose fear on your opponent. An enemy who notices this frame will be scared and seek cover for a short duration. It's more like Necro's Terrify ability, but it only has a shorter duration and it only works once per enemy, while his third ability is an open slot, and open for any suggestions. So, if you have an ability in mind that would fit for this frame, then don't hesitate to share it in the comment box below. If I was to decide, then I would go with an Exalted Whip. Probably because it would be fitting that Moirai's other hand will be equipped with something that does damage to those enemies that are controlled by his other hand. I would call it Death Whip. It would have a balanced critical and status chance, with lots of slash and bleed procs, to put those enemies that are chained to permanent sleep. But also, his third ability could be a defensive ability. Like for example, his third ability could be called Puppeteer's Force, an ability which allows Moirai to slowly consume the soul of those chained enemies. While this ability is active, chained enemies will take damage, which in return, will give Moirai damage mitigation and healing. The number of alive enemies in the chain will determine the effectiveness of this ability. This is just one of the many concepts out there that are still unnoticed by Digital Extremes. Others are probably snub because the developer doesn't have the reason to materialize it in game. Well, that needs to stop right now. I'm hoping that in the future, we can see some of the amazing community concepts in the game, and to do that, we must take action now. I have done my part, and now it's time you do yours. Please, if you have the time, let the community know that these types of concepts are out there waiting to be discovered. Kindly share this video to everyone using the hashtag #FanMadeWarframe. Let the gaming community know that there are talented concept artists who are devoting their talent to the Warframe community, and let Digital Extremes know that we hope to see their works in-game in the future. Thank you so much, team. Squad leader signing off.